been going all over the place, haven't we? Though WrestleBound has remained primarily in the States, we went to Mexico last episode, and now we're gonna have to go to Canada briefly for a special occasion. Actually, we need a time machine for what I have in mind, so we'll just stay put. But we'll still be going back in another way to the day of March 17th, 2002. I would have been 3 at the time, probably spending my days on the PC and getting kicked out of preschools, none the wiser to the world of wrestling. But the World Wrestling Federation, now Entertainment, was gearing up for their latest and what they thought would be their greatest spectacle yet, WrestleMania 18, or X8 as I like to call it. One of the taglines for this show was literally the absolute best ever. Way to get ahead of yourself, Vince. Christ. In case you don't think I qualify to talk about such a topic, I'll have you know that I've watched over half of the WrestleManias there are currently since I began watching in late 2007. So I would have started with 24 and haven't missed a single one since. Even went to 26 when it came to my home state. When I had the WWE Network, I went back to watch the Attitude Era Manias. That's 18 total. I didn't even bother to watch the 18th incarnation of the show and shows going into this. That just shows you how much I care about this show. WrestleMania X8 is the first WWE game on the GameCube. Now Nintendo players can experience the unique combination of THQ and Uke style of wrestling, or at least how they wanted to interpret it. You'll notice that I said WWE and not WWF, as this was the very first game that got the F out. Unless you want to count the rebranding of Raw on Xbox, but I don't ever want to be reminded of that game's existence. The game of the show was released only for the GameCube a few or several months after this show took place. First in North America on June 9th, then in Japan on September 6th, then finally in Europe on September 27th. Support goes up to 4 players, and the ESRB rated it a T, 14. I find this box to be super weird as it doesn't really represent what the whole show was based around. Stone Cold, who is front and center, had a forgetful encounter with Scott Hall somewhere in the middle of the show. Hogan, who had the match the whole show was built on, was on Steve Austin's left, while RVD is on his right. I didn't even know he was on the show. Apparently he opened it with Regal for the IC title. Good for him. And man, what could have been? The back is also kinda strange. Sure, it does your typical highlighting of features with taglines and screenshots, but it has a gold pristine border which doesn't really match the toot of the show. I mean, when you see the X8 and you see this, it makes no sense. I'm starting to feel like how I used to watch the WWE, confused all the time. So now I know the source. It started earlier than everyone thought. Here's a little reminder why I don't like wrestling games from the 6th gen. They always take up so much space on the memory cards. It's 20 less than Day of Reckoning, but every time I see there's no free space, it makes me go... We get a brief recap montage of the actual event that took place and nothing else. So you know what that means. It's montage foreshadowing time! Since this intro shows only footage and no gameplay by my logic, it's gonna be a bad one. My track record is good on this series, and I'm sure it'll hold up. Oh, blur that. We gotta blur that out. Don't let the panda people see that. But I do want you to see the size of this roster, and it's not too bad for their first outing with over 40 stars that may or may not have been there. At least I know these few were. And that guy who was at WWF New York doing a Ric Flair. WrestleMania, baby! Woo! But I'm picking Rob Van Dam because he deserved to main event one Mania. He's the whole effing show for crying out loud.
and he'll go against the one and only.
That's another tagline from X8, but it also works well with the Great One. And it was also one of the lyrics to Chris Benoit's theme.
I'm not entirely sure if the game is going for a realistic or cartoony style. The wrestlers look like themselves or as close as you can get for the time, but the bodies look a bit disproportionate, and what's with this weird transition effect? I don't think Kevin Dunn would hit that button as much as it is here.
I don't think a fade looks good if it's just randomly placed anywhere. It makes no sense.
But thank God these controls do. The familiar control scheme started here and pretty much carried on throughout. The stick makes you move, A does grapple moves that you can change the moves up with the stick, and B does striking attacks which you can hold for stronger attacks or combos. X does several of the mundane actions, Y is for running, the C stick changes focus, and the D-pad is for taunts. L and R do different counters depending on the attack, and Z is the all-important pin button.
They took advantage of all of the buttons on offer, good in some cases, but it can also lead to confusion, but that didn't happen for me, cause 1, I'm good, and 2, so is this controller.
You should know the goal by now, that being to build up your adrenaline meter to get up to 3 finishers, as well as building up your spirit while weakening your opponents. And when I thought I had the people's champion on the ropes, he surprised me with a rock bottom out of nowhere to pick up the win.
If we're being honest with ourselves, that's how the encounter would go down. That is, unless we booked this like a Heyman guy would. Rematch!
Some of my takeaways when playing this mode are as follows. You don't want the comm to take the early advantage, especially if you don't know the difference between the reversal buttons, cause then it'll be really tough to take back control of the fight. I also find it tough to keep a hold on one of these submission type grapples. I haven't been able to figure out what button you're supposed to push, so it's either half the time I'm forced off after one forceful application, or on the other hand, I'm near the ropes and all I hear is
break. I need a break, but I'm not sponsored, so this pencil will have to do.
If you can figure out this shit better than I can, you might be able to use your finishers quicker than me, and I'd recommend using them as soon as you get them, that way even if it doesn't put them away, you're able to weaken them a bit, but with enough patience and no shortage of offensive moves, you'll be able to be like Van Damme and put Rocky away on the grandest stage.
RVD, Alex Umat. I'll get my own champ one day.
So we have the controls and the singles match down somewhat, but a wrestling game is only as good when it has more matches on offer, and X8 does with a wide selection of matches followed by a good amount of stipulations to choose from.
It may look like your standard affair, but for the first WWE game on the Cube, it isn't the worst start, at least when you compare it to this.
Now you can mix and match various wrestlers and matches, as well as additional rules and the setting of their encounter. And whatever you get could be like a triple threat of Steve Austin versus Hollywood Hogan versus Taz in a Hell in a Cell match.
The men who are at one point or another on top of their respected brands. That's how you book a real invasion. Or how about a fatal 4-way ladder match between Jericho, Storm, Christian, and Kurt Angle? Cause he deserved a better Mania match than what he had with Kane. That's not a combo you would think of, and you probably didn't know it happened until now.
Other matches are your usual fare with the Battle Royal and Royal Rumble. New controls can be added depending on the stipulation, but again, it's all about the experimentation of the matchups you can come up with.
I'm hammering this down for a reason. But anyway, I put Big Show in a steel cage handicap match against the Outsiders, and can someone tell me why the hell the NWO doesn't have their classic theme? How could they not put that in? It's fucking stupid that they have this generic one. It's a disgrace to the New World Order of professional wrestling, brother. And so is this match, really.
It ended pretty quick as Kevin Nash escaped while Scott Hall kept their former associate down. So I got them all in a hardcore rematch which went longer by maybe a minute or two, cause even if you are 7 feet tall and weigh over 500 pounds, the numbers game is still too much.
It's no wonder he joined them later in the year.
Some match types have more stipulations over others, like tag team has a good amount, so you can have a tables match between the APA and Zoo Crew.
That's what Scotty 2 Hottie nicknamed his partnership with Albert, who was at this time the Hip Hop Hippo. That man has been through a lot of crap gimmicks.
But if the tables aren't enough, you can up the ante with the TLC, and what better way to do that than with 2/3 of the originators of the bout with the Hardys against the Dudleys.
Cliche, sure, but they're great together.
There were a lot of things in this match in particular that made me laugh. I mean, the AI isn't always brilliant, collision detection is something else in multi-man weapons matches, and the ref, well, he's just stuck in his own corner.
Check out this quick thinking from Matt. Catches a chair while he had a ladder. Clearly he was the bro with brains. But in the end, Bubba Ray was the one that grabbed the winged eagle, cause that's clearly what title is hanging there. If they're gonna redesign the tag straps, and God knows they need it, why not have more winged eagles?
Obviously, the singles mode has the most stipulations associated with them, and the last one to highlight is the Iron Man match, and I put Booker T and Edge against one another.
They literally fought over shampoo for 6 minutes, and these two with their caliber of work obviously deserved better. Now I'm emphasizing the many match types you can have, and it's not without good reason. It's because...
The rest of the game outside of the exhibition is just ass, and as you can already see, this is all there is left. Some of it is mandatory, like the options, which has your basic settings to toggle with. Create a Superstar was an overall disappointment. Though it had some interesting detail in some places, it didn't have enough in the costume department, and I was left with very little to pick for my outfit, so this was all, and I mean all, I could get.
I look like Austin Theory. Whether that's a good thing or not will be decided with time.
The remaining modes don't make things any better. Battle for the Belts was a weird gauntlet style mode where you can challenge for all these non-existent belts that honestly look pretty good, some of them anyway. I went with the most interesting championship design, which I guess turned out to be a women's belt because I had to go against Stephanie McMahon and got my ass handed.
I wouldn't know which one is worse, her or her husband. I'll have to consult my brother on that one.
So that was dull, but Path of a Champion is really no different. This time you go for one of the titles that were active around that time, and obviously I went for the top prize, but of course I had to work my way up to it first, taking on Scotty 2 Hottie, which was easy pickings.
Sorry to say, Scott, but when you're known for doing the worm and have the body of one, you're gonna get fried and eaten by the likes of me.
It's another tourney style thing, which y'all know 18 episodes in, that I'm not fond of in any wrestling game, and got eliminated by Matt Hardy in the next match.
There really is no stake to these tourneys as far as I'm aware. There may be some unlockables, but there needs to be more to it, like worthwhile unlockables, or heck, some exclusive prizes, or money. Then I could give a damn. Hey man. You talking about the pinball tournament I was in? I got first place, and I just got back. What's new with you? Not much, really. But I did find this pinball under my bed. Can you please stop storing your shit in my room?
WrestleMania X8 received generally favorable reviews, and that only shows you this was the first WWE game on the system because they didn't know any better. No idea how well it sold either, but sales weren't going to stop this game from getting a follow-up, and you just stay tuned for that. There is a handheld game with the X8 name. I didn't talk about it here because the title is slightly different, and by the look of it, it deserves to be a video by itself. One interesting tidbit is that later releases of the game switched Steve Austin out for Dwayne Johnson. This was due to the former's walkout from the company and Vince throwing a hissy fit about it, trying to distance the product from their biggest star for a spell. I don't know if that actually extended to US copies, as I can only find the foreign versions having this alternate cover. So, yeah, potential rare variant perhaps?
As much as I pride myself being of superior intellect to all of you nerds, you have me this time. I'm not entirely knowledgeable when it comes to WrestleMania. I've been on this earth 23 years currently, and I've only watched over half of them in full, but I don't have all the time in the world to watch and learn the shows and their history. That's what other channels are for. But the thing I do know is that the event of WrestleMania X8 was probably better than the game.
Actually, they both share something in common. They had the promise to be something good, but ended up being mostly forgettable, apart from the parts that made it good. The game has good mechanics, easy to learn controls, and isn't too difficult to where it feels unfair, and it has plenty of ways to configure a match, so you won't get bored there. But everything else just falls flat. Both modes outside the exhibition are almost the same and not as fun. Graphics are a bit meh, but are fine for their first GameCube outing. And unless I'm missing something, the cast was also a letdown. When you break it down like this, X8 the game is pretty basic to its core. You'll only want to play an exhibition than do anything else, which may be good if the game was from an older generation, but on a brand new cube that could play games, they could have done better. And eventually they would, but it took some more time.
But as time has gone on, it hasn't really been good with this game, with hardly anything to do outside of the exhibition. This will go back on the shelf before long, so this is gonna get 2 stars. You can probably guess where we're going next. We're going from one WrestleMania to another. But that's gonna take about a year or so. So all we can do now is wait.